Thanks for hanging in. I'm Kate Harper. I'm from Agile Hood KC. I also work for Echo Select. I am here today to introduce our speaker. Today we were supposed to have Brett Gibson, who was going to do a session on Agile and the nature of culture change. Brett is unable to make it. However, his partner in crime, Jared Locke, has decided to come and fill in for him. So I think you're in for a treat. Jared is a PhD, licensed industrial and organizational psychologist. In his 25-year career, working as a leader in 4 organizations, all of those organizations achieved sustained and long-term double-digit growth. Jared consults with Convergent at the CEO and the board level. He's worked with companies including Adidas, Bank of America, and Valero. Jared is a frequent speaker, writer, and professional trainer with over 60 book chapters, publications, and presentations. He has 2 daughters named Rachel, 16, and Amelia, 14. I would like to tell you to be ready. Jared is passionate and energetic about this topic, and he's going to speak to you on Agile and the culture of change.
Thanks, Kay. I really appreciate it, and thank you for actually sticking around. You deserve a better round of applause than perhaps I will or do or can by the end of this talk. Yesterday at my talk, it was right after the keynote, and there was still a good chunk of people in there, but there wasn't 500 in there, and so I said, I'm not Joyce Lehman, and today, I'm not as pretty as Joyce Lehman, that's for sure, and then today, I'm saying I'm not Brett Gibson. So if you came to hear Brett Gibson, I can hack through a strange New Zealand accent for you if you really want me to, but if not, I thought we'd just speak a little American today and talk about change and what we're trying to do with there. As Kay said, I am a licensed industrial organizational psychologist. I've also been president of several organizations, including Test Publisher. I've worked in management consulting. I've been internal for Fortune 50 organizations as well as external for large consultancies as well. So I have a lot of experience in a lot of different places. One of my true passions for a long time, though, has been culture change and what happens with culture change and why is it both so important, so difficult, and so intriguing at the same time. And if you work with multinationals like Adidas or PepsiCo or UPS or people like that, you really start to understand the whole cultural phenomenon, what's going on. What I try to do is transfer that then into workplaces here, hopefully in Kansas City, but certainly in the U.S. at this point in time to try and make things happen. I assume everyone can hear me okay, and that's all right. Convergent is truly a convergence of 3 different businesses, okay? We have Brett Gibson, who's a fabulous IT person, understands the Agile world very well, and brings the focus of technology into our organization. And so a lot of our clients and a lot of the people we do business with are technology firms out there or organizations with IT or IT or IS departments, if you will. I bring the people side of that into there as well because a lot of times with IT, we're focusing on processes. We don't always focus on the people side of it, and I try to bring that people piece in. We have Nathan Lagergren as well, who brings a wealth of experience in the IT world, but he brings it from an MBA or a business standpoint and does a fabulous job with respect to metrics, showing return on investment, helping us establish that, not us, but our clients as well, that we're doing a really, really good job. One of the real things that we try to bring to the table now, we've created a proprietary way to predict how quickly or how fast either a transformation from waterfall to agile can occur or how long a project's going to take. Harvard Business Review talks a lot about, there's that article is kind of scathing about IT projects, 70% of them run over budget. Of those 70%, 50% of them are over budget by 200%. Projects go over time, they go over budget all the time, and organizations don't want to do that anymore. We come in and provide a predictive way to realistically help organizations understand this is exactly how long it's going to take. This is why it's going to take longer than you thought it would. If you do these actions, you can bring the time down. And so we can create an upfront negotiation, if you will, to help the organization understand exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and how to leverage that from a cost savings, cost benefit perspective. And so far, all the projects that we've done this with and used this proprietary assessment with, we've been able to predict within 90% accuracy what the exact time and budget are going to be, which is an improvement over what we've seen up till then. I woke up this morning and was thinking about this, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I just threw it in there, so it's kind of hanging like a shad like a hanging shad off of a ballad in Florida. But the one thing I do want you to understand, and this is kind of my look at the world, and that is that people individually are the most dangerous consequential forces on earth. We can mess up a lot of stuff, okay? And we have. I mean, if you think about tsunamis or AIDS or any disease that's ever gone on, and you think of the number of people that Hitler and Stalin killed, you can start seeing that. We're now in a position where we're polluting the world, and you can't see 5 feet in front of you in Beijing, and we now have people who are looking at us and saying, let's fracture the earth. Let's literally force it apart with pressure to suck oil out of it and do stuff with that. And so we as humans are absolutely the most dangerous consequential force on this earth as we speak today. It's proven time and time again, and it's out there. Okay, and while I just talked about a bunch of macro stuff that's really, really out there, and we all think, well, leaders rise to the top. Well, if leaders are supposedly rise to the top, why are so many of them bad? Okay, all right, and so we're not that good at it. And so what I look at when I think of this is I try to look at where's energy being dissipated away from what we're trying to do. And when I'm talking about it from that vantage point, I'm talking about group effectiveness, because group effectiveness is the measure by which we have to understand how are leaders doing, how are people doing, and what does that look like. And then from that vantage point, if people are the most dangerous consequential force on earth, shouldn't we know something about them? Okay? What's the number one reason that your projects fail? Does anyone want to take a guess? Want to shout it out? People, yes, they screw up everything. We've got great processes. We've planned and organized to the T. We've discussed. We've got manuals. We've got training. We've got all this stuff. And at some point in time, people decide not to do what you need them to do. Or they do it differently. Or they don't do it the way you want them to do it. And they mess things up. And so shouldn't we know that? And that's kind of the point of what we at Convergent, but also me today, talking about culture and what that comes from and how that comes from something, to help you understand what's going on with that and what that looks like. And so from that vantage point, from an agenda standpoint, I'm going to try and I will provide a background concerning Agile as seen through the lens of historical PMO models. You guys know that stuff better than I do. This is kind of, Brett would have gone crazy on that piece of it, and I'll try and give some of his enthusiasm with less of the accent, but I'll try and get you there anyway. Then we're going to talk about the nature of these changes and why project managers are being asked to move in this direction, okay? And I'm going to try and provide a model of workplace cultural values to describe and understand the difficulty with change, okay? Then we can discuss what to do about it, all right? I should be done. I'll be done for sure in an hour, so in 40 minutes, or 50 minutes, and we can certainly have a few questions after that, but just if you can hold with me for another 50 minutes, that would be great. Everyone here knows what Agile is, right? We're on the track. All right, so the idea is we're doing short sprints, and we're moving towards, we're focusing on the customer, and we're moving towards a project end, and we're kind of taking 2-week, maybe 3-week sprints and stuff, and providing chunks of a project to a client, saying, look at this, test it, feel it, is it what you need? Has your business model changed? Do we need to do a little different here? How do we need to go? So that instead of what we used to do, which was say, okay, we've got all of your specifications, let's hide behind this curtain, and 6 months later we'll come out with a product. We're trying to keep the product in front and keeping it as a going model model, if you will, to make sure that the customer gets the things that they need. Agile was started, in '01, I think, so the turn of the century, and some people and some developers met to discuss these methods that they were talking about, and basically they came up with their manifesto, if you will. And there's 4 or 5 points in that, and that is that we value interactions and individuals over processes and tools. Okay. We develop working software over comprehensive documentation. Let's get the thing to work. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation, if you will, which is that let's do it all at one time. And we respond to change over just following a plan or a process, if you will. And that is when there's value in the items on the right, the values on the left. This group indicated they value the stuff on the left or the stuff in the red more than they do the stuff on the right. And what we just talked about was people screw things up, right? And the stuff on the left is all about people. And how are we doing on that people side so far? It's not so well. So to put them kind of side by side, we've got process versus people, tools versus culture, control versus harnessing resources and engaging people. And there's a lot of what to do and how to do it, if you will. And so this is a look at just what's the paradigm shift between traditional, project management or waterfall kind of programming, if you will, and an agile focus and what that looks like. Few successes that go along with this, but most importantly, the thing that's important is for a lot of people to understand that that there's a paradigm shift here. The paradigm shift is away from control and process, and a lot of times the paradigm shift is moving towards people and processes. Now, here's a little secret for you. I've got a database full of a bunch of project managers, business analysts also, and other people that are working and doing the things that we do. Okay, my database is about 10,000 people. 10,000 people in that. It's a worldwide database, and studying this business for a really long time. A couple of the things we know about project managers, not as every single individual project manager, but as a group of people, is there's a couple things. One, they love process and procedure. They like organization. They like stuff to fit in the box. They like to create the puzzle and put the puzzle together, and that puzzle fits very nicely together in a coherent fashion, and everything kind of touches and sits together really, really well. The second thing is that some percentage of them, and I put that percentage of about 45 to 50%, don't like confrontation. Okay? They don't like the "you do this now, I don't want it, you do this." Okay, and they don't like the back and forth heavy-handedness or the push that needs to come from directly leading people or telling people or forcing people to do things that they need to do. And when you think about it from that vantage point, I've got a person in front of me who's not going to do something, or they're holding my project up. What is one of the things I'm going to do? Do I either go at them, or do I say, "Look, here's a process. Isn't this process rational? Doesn't it make sense? Doesn't it work?" And that's what we continue to do, is we as in the project management field continue to push on that process piece, because the other part's hard and it's not fun. And people can get upset with you or angry with you or not enjoy that. And it's not just this group, it's a lot of different groups out there. But as I look at this group and I compare it to a general population or a population of managers or people like that, these are a few significant differences that show up. I'm telling you that so that you can kind of think for yourself, is that one of the things that I do a lot of times? Do I just focus on that and say, the process is so rational? If only you listen, you can see, and then your mind should go along with it and follow. And what's wrong with trying to get people's minds to say, yeah, that is rational. That would be easier than what I've been doing before. That would, of course, be greater, much easier. Is that we're influencing people through the head, and most people are making those decisions, or at least 50 to 60% of the world is making the decision through their heart. Does this feel good? Is this something I want to do? Is this somewhere I want to get to and do something on a day-to-day basis? And the fact is that if it's not, and people aren't, they're not following you. Okay, because your head can move around a lot, but your body can't move without your head, everything else moving either. That heart's right there in the middle of that thing, and if you can't get people's hearts, can't get them focused on it, you're going to fail. And they'll start doing destructive stuff, and as we saw, that we are consequentially destructive as humans. There's a bunch of successes that go along with Agile. There's some failures that go along with it too. Some of those are empire building, lack of transparency, information hoarding. So virtually all the stuff that goes on the right side of that manifesto stuff, and they just do more and more of it, if you will. And so we kind of worry about that. So we're trying to move a group from waterfall over to Agile and what's going on or what's happening. And basically, what we're looking at is the difference between current culture and future values. And this is another way that I really think of organizations virtually every time I'm in them. And that's anything I do. So if I'm developing, anything I do or anything my partners do, anything you're doing. Because if you're putting a project together, people are doing this right now, and we want them to do this. Or if we're moving from waterfall to Agile, it's like go from command and control to kind of team and collaboration. Go from process and procedures and negotiation of contracts to short sprints and quick customer feedback loops and team looks and things like that. And those are real changes, folks. Those are very real changes. And what happens is that the values that we have over here, the things we care about, some of them transfer over and they really benefit us, and some of them don't. Either we have them here and we don't need them here, or we don't really have them and we need them over there. And that's some of those individual differences I was talking about, like our real desire to focus on process and our lack of desire to have tough conversations with other people and do that kind of stuff. And so what happens when you have a misaligned value is if that hardened into it, they're not going down it. Anyone in here have children? Or anyone in here have a dog or a cat? Yeah? Okay. And so some of us with children might have spouses too, right? And that spouse might also live in our house as well. Okay. Anyone notice what happens with our kids, right? Dad's home, dad's rule, some of his rules may matter. Our kids react differently and act differently with each person in the house. Right? Yes? No? Shake your head? Yeah? Okay. All right. Because mom might value A, B, and D. Dad might value C and X. And these kids have no choice but to do that because they have no choice like employed adults do. Okay? So mom's here, I'm following her. And dad's here, I'm following him. But when dad's not here, the things he wants me to follow that I don't really care about, I blow them off. And when mom's here or not here, and the things that she cares about that dad doesn't, so I don't have to follow them, and I don't care about, I don't do them either. Your employees, every person that you're moving from a waterfall to Agile focus is doing the exact same thing. Well, it's not because mommy and daddy, it's because of what's in their heart, or what I call their values or their cultural understanding. And it's not, and unlike your children, they don't have to. You can't send them to their room. Okay? You can't kick them out or do whatever it is people do to their children when they don't do the things they want them to do. And so that look like that is coming across and hitting you in the face every time you're trying to adopt an Agile culture or to implement a new process or to get customer service reps to use your new software the right way or whatever it is, however you're rolling down the path. All those things are people are looking inside their heart, figuring out, do I want to do that stuff or not? And if I don't, what's the consequences? And if there's no consequences, who cares? If there are consequences, can I live with them anyway because my heart cares about this a lot? It's amazing anything ever gets changed or done. So if I was Brad, I would be doing this more than I'm doing now, and I'd say, as the industry has moved towards Agile, we have traditionally placed an emphasis on the process instead of the people. Okay, so if you ever know Brad Gibson, that's as close as I'm going to get to that. And we still continue to do that. Why? Because what's in our hearts. Again, if this group is representative of the sample of 10,000 people worldwide in the project management world that I data on, this group likes process. And this group doesn't like that feeling of, I'm pushing against other people. Okay? And so when we're feeling stressed, when our project isn't working, we look into our heart and we say, what do I like the best? What will work? Process. And we throw that back out. We continue to throw that back out. We continue to push that instead of focusing on the other side. And that's ignoring culture. And that's ignoring those things. And so someone in here answered the question, I'll buy you a beer afterwards if you want, but the number one reason for Agile and lean adoption failures is things called people. Okay. Does anyone disagree yet, or no? Questions at this point? I'll stop and answer. No? Okay. So, works something like this. People have values. Even our IT philosophies like Scrum and Lean, they have values, right? And sometimes those things match up. And when they match up, that's awesome. And sometimes they don't match up. And when they don't, it's not. And a lot of times what we will do is we will place values behind the process. Value schvalues. This company versus that. It doesn't matter. I know Scrum. I know this. And I can do this anywhere, anytime. It's my process. And as long as you follow the process, I'll go. And sometimes people do not follow, but sometimes people don't follow those values. Our current culture then is made up of what we value and where that aligns with our peers, managers, and others. Because remember, all those people are taking energy away. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. And so what we get at the end is an understanding of true culture, okay? And this is, does anyone know what big data is? A couple of you? Okay, I won't go down the path. If you want to talk about big data later, that's the biggest problem with big data is big data does not take into account cultural considerations at all. In fact, what it does is, from a big data standpoint, is it washes it and scrubs it away. But what's different at Hallmark and different at Cerner and different at DST is going to be different, and their cultures are different. And we as people, if we understand those things and understand the sum values of the collective good of people in those organizations, we can then understand, compute, and predict the current and future state and what's going to happen when we try to do those things. Okay? And so this is really, I'm not going to go into this. I kind of did that the first time, but this is, as we move from waterfall to agile, a few things are transferable. A lot of them aren't. The ones that aren't really transferable from one culture to another, then the new culture needs to decide, do I like that or not, or do I not like that or not? Okay? And culture is defined necessarily by the ruling class. Okay, so a lot of people say, what's culture? Well, but aren't in the culture of India different than the culture of the United States, or in the culture of Germany different than the culture of France, or something like that. And this is a real important point because culture is defined by the ruling class of that place. And so this is why, like for instance in Iraq, when Saddam was his government was overthrown, 5 days later, television antennas popped up. Over 20,000 television antennas popped up in Baghdad. Okay, did people all of a sudden like television? No, they always liked television. They just didn't get to watch it, or they died. And so, once that threat, the ruling class decided that once that mom was gone or that dad was gone, and that rule no longer mattered, boom, television antennas everywhere popped up. Overnight. Okay. People say, well, German's different than French or different than that. I worked in Germany with Adidas. I worked with BASF, the people that make the blue bluer or whatever, and I worked with EDAS, the government people that make like Airbus airplanes and stuff like that. I also worked for Bayer, the aspirin people. Those are different companies. Whoever's running that company or running that department tells their people how to do that. People at Bayer couldn't work at Adidas, even though they're all German. That's why in town here, it's kind of funny, is people you'll hear people talk all the time. Well, he's from DST, he can't work at, this company over here. Why? Well, they do things a little different here. They're from Sprint, and they do things a little differently than this group, so it's not going to work very well. Talk about culture and how we do things and what that looks like. And from our vantage point, what we try to do is understand, because every change requires three things. People, tools, and purpose, and processes, And with that, there's people involved. And when you have those people involved, their values are involved, their personal motivations are involved, their expectations are involved, and that's what I call the whole person. Okay, what do I care about inside of here? What am I doing to try and get it? And how am I solving problems and making decisions on a day-to-day basis? And what we've done is we've actually pulled together a database of measures of those. I am a psychologist. I do believe in data. I make no bones about that. We test people. We have assessment data on, at this point in time, over 500,000 people who we not only have assessment data on, but job performance. We've gone into their companies and found out how they do job performance. And that's, so for project managers, it's like talking to the executive sponsor. How did this person do? What did that look like? What did they do well? What didn't they do well? And we have 25,000 people in that industry that we've looked at and understand. We have 10,000 people, 25,000 people in the IT industry, 25,000 at director level and above, if you will. And we have all these data on these people that understand what's in their heart, how they go about doing it, and what are they solving and making decisions on a day-to-day basis. We can also attach that to what the company is looking for, what expectations that company has, and be able to look backwards from that and make predictive assumptions that say, if you've got this group of people trying to go that direction, here's what's going to happen. Now, you guys aren't psychologists. You're not any of that kind of, and that's okay. But you can try and understand some of this stuff, which is what we're doing today and where we're trying to go. And it works, and I've kind of talked about this, is that, okay, so Agile has what, the 12 principles of the Agile Manifesto, right? So there's all 12 of those. Well, okay, so the executive sponsor, or maybe even you, the project manager, or the head of the Scrum team, or whatever that is, that person looks at those 12 things and says, you know, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 8, and 12 are really, really important to me and who I am. 4, 5, and 6, and 8, and 9, I don't really care much about that. So what happens when that person's talking about Agile? 6 or 7 of those things get talked about a lot. 3 or 4 of those things get talked about a little and give lip service. 3 or 4 of them get totally ignored. Guaranteed. Every single spot we've been in, everyone we've looked at, it's exactly what happens. And then that goes, and so that person, that mouth, blah, 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 talks this way, and the black line gets to their people, so they hear what Dad cares about, and they hear what Dad doesn't care about. So now at this point in time, they're saying, okay, well, if I want to keep my job, those 6 things that he talked about, I'll talk about at least 4 of them. 2 of them I really don't care about, but I want to keep my job, so I'll kind of give them lip service. And then here's 2 that he didn't talk about, and I may try and keep it under the gun, but tell them about it, and let them know, and see what's going on. And the other ones I'm ignoring too. And each of those 3 disciples is now a voice for what's going on at the top. And then that gets out to the team. And the team then is doing the exact same evaluation of what's in my heart, what do I really care about, what do I want to do, what do I not want to do. And if you look at this, and you see all those red lines poking out of there, and this is what we're able to predict at this point in time. We can actually look at this and understand how well the culture will navigate through an organization, through a project, and how much will be slippage and where the slippage will be and why. Then we have the real ability to understand what chance of success this thing is actually going to have. But it's funny when you look at this and you think about it and you're thinking to yourself, how does change ever happen? Right? Because we leave a process, all right? And if you just follow my process, it's rational and it'll work and it'll help you. And I believe in it. No, that doesn't, no, sorry. But maybe. Does everyone get this? Does it make sense? As I'm describing this stuff, is it kind of, you're thinking of some of the projects you're in and that executive sponsor and you wish he would say this and that or she would do this thing or that thing and they don't? Or this manager that you think, and here's the one that's the most interesting for me is that person that's been there for 15 years and the company holds them up in high esteem. It's one of our best people in IT. They're awesome at it. They would be a great pilot participant to put over here into the Agile camp. So what are they great at? Process and procedures, waterfall principles, kind of keeping things to themselves, not talking to other people, not doing this. But by God, the senior executive loves this person and says we must make them a pilot participant. They're going to be our head pilot participant. Let's put them over here and watch what happens with their heart. You mean I have to talk to them now? Usually someone else said, no, you can't. You mean I got to tell people they're not doing things right and we have to have these kind of feedback sessions instead of me just Yeah? But it'll be great because we have this process. And we have some training for you. And we have some stuff that'll happen for you and really help you out. You just deep sixed your entire project. Deep sixed it. What we find is usually the 30% high performers in a waterfall environment, when you move to Agile, they probably, at least half of them, so 15% of them will become your worst performers. Hands down, flat. Happens time again, every organization we go into. Wouldn't it be nice to know something about these people before you start putting them into pilot roles? All right, so I've talked about this. I'm not going to spend much time. The whole person is a collective of what are their experiences, their degrees, what do they know, what have they done. I guess I put that on a timer. I'll just go through this. Then we look at what's in their heart, what do they care about, their personality, their body, what are they doing to help themselves get it, what are they doing to kind of screw it up, especially under stress and pressure, and how are they solving problems and making decisions on a day-to-day basis. And this is actually an important slide because it shows the difference between kind of a traditional PMO and an Agile group. And the traditional PMO, how the things these people, a lot of times the heads of these organizations care about, they care about being the leader. I like to lead. I want to wake up in the morning and tell other people what to do versus being told what to do. Okay? They're focused on money and this. And if we roll traditional and don't do a lot of stuff and we do it the way we've always done it, it'll be cheaper. Because Agile seems like there's not a specific budget, there's not a specific way to do this. That seems vague. Let's stick with what we're doing because we know how to price that. We're wrong 50% of the time, but that's okay. We'll price it that way anyway. And finally, security. They like the way things are, especially if they're at the top, right? Because they're mom and dad. They get to make the rules. Right? So why would I give up the rules if I get to make them? Ambitious and process-driven. There's a lot of ambition there. There's also a lot of process-driven mentality, if you will. And under stress and pressure, there's more of this, which is, I am good at what I do. We will persevere. Just give me another $1 million in another 3 months. Promise you it'll get done by then. We'll get it over the line. And then, because we're going to follow a process. And who's the second favorite person in the organization that loves process? CFOs. Process is predictable. Process sounds like prediction. Prediction sounds like money. Money sounds like I can now budget against this thing. Except we're wrong 70% of the time, and out of that 50% of the time, we're 200% over budget. But each time I tell you, I got the process now. We've got it. It's under control. Data-driven. All of it is data-driven. I heard what I had. I've got a process in place. I'll gather data around this thing and work on it. You work over here to an Agile group, there's a little more affiliation. Let's work together. Let's figure out what we're trying to do. There's some altruism. The customer actually should have a voice. I want to hear what that customer has to say and actually give them what they want, not what's easiest for me. And then the security or willingness to take risk, which is every 2 weeks we don't know what we're going to do. That's kind of haphazard, right? We're not sure where we're going or what's going to happen. They need to have a heart for willingness to kind of have ambiguity in front of them. They're self-disciplined, okay? So again, some ambition there, and interpersonal, okay? They're nice. let's get along. We're supposed to work together. Let's try, you know. And there's some strategy there as well. The things that kill an Agile group: reserve, which is I'm going to just go into my office and keep my head down and plunk away and do my work, which is why a lot of those best waterfall people become your worst Agile people. That's what they did. They kept them. Why do bosses like those people so much? They keep their mouth shut. They do everything they're supposed to do. They don't bother me. I don't have to manage them much. But under Agile, that works directly against them. And then they're cautious. I don't want to do that Agile thing. Let's do it the same way this time. We'll change next time, maybe. Right? Let's focus on what we do know because there's a crunch. 2 weeks is a tight deadline. So let's just focus on what we know. And that squeezing back to the way I've always done it kills the waterfall person as they move into an Agile environment, if you will. Finally, we have action-oriented and interpersonal. Okay, so they're making decisions on, is it quick? Can I get it out there? Can I not hack something together? I don't mean that derogatorily, but can I get something in front of the client so I can get feedback? And can I hear that feedback interpersonally so that I can react appropriately to it? And so you take a waterfall person, put them into an agile environment. I focus on my goals because my boss usually gives them to me and then leaves me alone. Lets me go do it. I don't like change because we've been doing it this way for a long time. I am driven, but sometimes when I talk, I don't have very good... You see how disjointed this can be, and every time we try to get this person to align with the way we want to do things, that's energy expenditure, right? So if I love sitting in my office with my headphones on, just going away, and now I have to interact with customers and do something, that's change, right? 3 different energies can go into that change. The person can try to become that. The company can try to pull them over, and we do that with process, right? Sorry. Or the person can resist. All 3 energies will be involved in that project. It's up to you to decide which ones are coming and how much of each of them so you can figure out how long is this thing going to take. Which leads me back to the principle of 30-30-30, which is in any change environment, 30% of the people in that group are going to love it. Oh yes, sign me up. That's exactly what I want to do because I've been having to do this whole time, but that's all I thought I could do. I can do this, I'm in. 30% of them are going to be water chesters. Laggers is what I call them. They kind of sit there. 30% are going to hate the change. 25 years of doing this, guys, I mean, it consistently, it comes out right there every single time. The other 10% is not error, but it's the human factor, and that's good. But wouldn't it be nice to understand who is definitively in these 30-30-30s? Because if you do, you can figure out where a person is with respect to being rooted, or ready, or rugged, or resilient by looking at how willing are they to do the change, how willing are they to collaborate, which are hallmarks of Agile, right? But some other things can be hallmarks of Agile, and so we can take a look at individual pieces of it. Is it interactions and individuals over processes and tools? So we can put one on the X, one on the Y, and we can look at the people in that group and figure out where they are. Is it working software versus documentation? And we can plot people with respect to that. And is it collaboration versus negotiation? And we can plot people with respect to that so that we understand who's willing, who's with us, who's in with us, and who's not. Because that pilot group, what I've just done is I've put an intense amount of pressure on you to identify the right pilot group or the right first group to take through this thing or the right group of people. And it ain't about their process and it isn't about what they've done in the past. It's about what's in here. And it's not if this thing is good or bad because I'm not a judge, but is this thing going to go the way that I need it to go? And there's things along the environment, the bumps in the road that this person's willing to get to and work through. Does this make sense? Any quick questions right now, or you want to hold it until later? We've got about, I promised you 4:30, so we've got about 20 minutes, and that'll be plenty of time, so we can ask questions afterwards if you want. Okay. Values, what are they? Culture, what is it? I kind of throw all those, I'm not going to debate, just words, if you will. The values, culture, environment that I like, and things of that nature. In my opinion, they all kind of meld together in some hodgepodge, if you will. But what I'm looking at is, what's the kind of environment the person wants to work in? What's the kind of environment an employee creates for his or her subordinates or team members, okay? So there's two things I'm looking at. The employees, I'm looking at the boss, okay? Because we're centric people, and so what I think I care about, I assume everyone else wants as well. So if I need a lot of pats on the back, I'm an attaboy cheerleader. If I don't need any, so I judge my own performance, I assume if you've done your job, you did your job, that's what you get paid for. And I don't give a lot of pats on the back. And this is where it also comes out. CFOs, 85% of them are motivated by cash, money. They think money is a big motivator to everybody. Fact is 50% of the population getting pats on the back or some managerial expectation over cash is more important to them, but yet CFOs who are in charge of the budget always say, oh, let's throw money at those greedy suckers and they'll work harder. Well, we'll take your money, but we don't necessarily work harder. Okay, I'm not stupid. Okay, that's a psychology rock test. Which hand's rocking, the raise or not? Okay, yeah, I'll take the raise, but it doesn't mean I'm going to work any harder. And it looks like this: employees prefer to work with other people who want the same stuff as them, and they prefer not to work with the people that don't. And so, values measures permit an evaluation of these things. So these measures give an insight regarding how an employee gains satisfaction, what an employee values, and we tend to look at them in one of three levels. What is it? A true driver? Something that truly they wake up every morning. It's like a gotta have. It's like icing on the cake or a nice to have. So if it's there, it's fine. If it's not, it's not. If my gotta haves or my drivers aren't getting met, these things become much more important. It's like, shoot, I'm not even getting that, and I'm not getting this either. And that's when people leave. They'll sometimes hang on if those middle level ones are around, just because, it's like, well, I'm not getting what I really care about, but this stuff kind of helps out. And then there's indifference usually at the low end, but not demotivation, if you will. So what are the 10 main drivers that we tend to look at in people? And they're not in they're in an order because they're going to go into super factors here in a bit, but basically, what we're looking at is recognition. How much pats on the back? How much acceptance do I need? And think about a waterfall programmer who is perfectly fine sitting in their office, taking their chunk of work and never talking to somebody, and all of a sudden being thrust into an agile environment where they're being asked to interact and engage and get feedback all the time and be understood from that. Great story. I was working with a company who had a great idea, which was to put HR and the IT group on the same floor. And so the HR lady, I was there for a meeting, she goes, well, every Friday we have our culture go-go. And she said, oh, okay. I'm like, okay. She goes, I said, we're all going to get together and we recognize someone. So they get together and all the HR people are all jumping and all the IT. I'm sorry, I'm being kind of mean. They're kind of like this, oh God, when can we get back to work? And then someone had to read one of their corporate values, and so it was her that day, so she wanted to show me what a great program. So she read the corporate value of teamwork and help. And she goes, and I want to find Frank in software because he helped me with the printer the other day when I had some problems. Frank? Frank, where are you? Frank! Oh, there you are behind that pole. Come here. Come to the front. This guy is just like, oh my God, he's beat. I asked her a month later, she goes, he quit. I said, where's Frank? He quit. Why? Oh, we don't know. His exit interview was great. He loved us. Yeah, okay, so yeah. Power, being in charge and being perceived as influential. Think about this for an agile versus waterfall environment, right? I wake up in the morning because I want to tell people what to do. That's my goal. Happy, sad, angry, mad, good times or bad. I like to tell people what to do versus I'm willing to take a step back and let other people lead from time to time. Hedonism, entertaining, let's call it that. I come to work because I like the interaction. I like where it's going. We're actually studying a lot of IT shops here in Kansas City, and this one actually changes a lot. And even in .NET groups or other developer groups, it actually changes a lot where some groups are really, truly interactive, and we talk and we hang out, and after work, and on Saturdays we hang out, on Fridays we go out for drinks or something like that. And other groups, it's like, yeah, we get our work done and we go home. And that's it. And that's okay, either one, but it's an environmental thing. And that's kind of a difference between a Cerner or a Sprint or a DSD or a Hallmark or anybody like that around the city. And people will find those companies that share those values and get away from the ones that don't. Altruism, actively helping others, being kind of customer focused, focusing on others and what they're trying to do and where they're going. Affiliation, networking, getting out of your office, learning other people's names. Figuring out if I need this done, I can go to that one because they're good at what they do, and understanding that. I hate this in the middle, but tradition has to do with what I call amplification of these other 9 scales. And where something like this is high scores on tradition, they know what they like, and the world is black and white to them. Okay, so that could be a right-wing conservative or a left-wing liberal, okay? It's not about one or the other. It could be a cannibal that truly loves cannibalism, or a hedonist that truly loves hedonism. I mean, it could be whatever, but if their values are really, really strong, they want to hang out with people who share those values, who do the same things as them, who like the same things as them, and who think about that. So if you have a high score on tradition here, then the other people in the group better have those same values, the other high scores that you have as well, or else you're not going to like it or not. And this is what happens to kids out of college. They go, you'll see them a lot of times, they'll go one job for 6 months, one job for 6 months, one job for 6 months, next company for 20 years. What they did is they tried on a culture, tried on a culture, tried on a culture, and finally found one that fit and said, oh, this is good, I'm going to stick here, right? And that's that high tradition kind of person that works through that. Security, needing predictable, risk-free work environments. It's obvious, right? Okay. Commerce, making and saving money, involved in the organizational financial piece. Sometimes this matters or not. I think it should start mattering a lot more because CFOs are becoming a lot more understanding of the IT world, and as they get smarter about it and start questioning what our practices, this whole 70% of our projects going over budget, 50% of them by 200% is going to really, really suck, okay? Because they're going to try and figure out something else. Because you know what? They're not that worried about the people side of things, and they are just okay with saying, let's outsource the darn thing versus and that's, that's the wave, right? So let's insource, let's outsource, let's insource, let's outsource, let's insource, let's outsource. Okay? That's the only button a lot of them know how to push. Okay, so if you guys can't figure it out, someone else is going to figure it out for you. Aesthetics is a focus on quality and the look and feel. This is about putting together the puzzle, making sure it's pretty, making sure it works well, all the pieces fit together. And then finally we have science, which is an analytical problem solving and a desire to work with technology. And obviously a lot of people in the technological community will score a little higher on this and care about that. Basically, these things roll into 4 different subsections, which would be like achievement, motivation. That's that first one. Am I driving the group, and am I figuring out if I'm motivated by, yes, I did a good job or not. Those middle 4 are all about social interests. How much am I willing to interact with you and discuss stuff with you and do things like that. Security and commerce, about entrepreneurial values, if you will. And then finally, aesthetics and sciences is kind of what's going on in your brain, or how does your heart want to make decisions and solve problems on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so it's the interaction between your heart and your head, basically. And so we measure these things in virtually every person we do a project with. Measure them with the leader, measure them with the people, measure them with other people. I was working with Adidas, and they own Salomon, the ski company. I looked at Adidas' executive team, I looked at Salomon's executive team, and I told Adidas to sell them. And he did. I said, your values do not match up. This whole merger and acquisition thing that goes on, and 70%, 80% of mergers and acquisitions don't live up to the expected value. It's about culture. And I also told Adidas, her hire, and said, buy Reebok. So we looked at Reebok's senior team, and you think, okay, Adidas is kind of this kind of fuddy-duddy kind of tennis company and stuff, and Reebok's like street shoes and outdoor. Those cultures don't match, but there was 3 things that were common between both of those companies that they really, really cared about, and we were able to say, let's live off of those 3 things, and let the rest we can cross-pollinate, because Reebok was a heck of a lot better at marketing than Adidas ever was. Okay, but Adidas was a heck of a lot better at the logistics and the science behind putting together a quality product. And with those 2 things, and on the other side, 3 or 4 of those other things mattered so much to both companies that they were able to cross-pollinate those things that were different, because they could stand on, we all care about one thing. And when we're in an IT project, we find those 2 or 3 things that everyone cares about. And we start from there and then try and bring those red lines, the red arrows that were going away, try and cross-pollinate those the right way so that we can stay on that. But if you keep that black line that's going through, which is, I care about one, these people care about one, this person cares about one, and this person cares about one. And maybe that's willingness to take chances. Maybe that's willingness to interact and engage with other people. Okay? And if you do that, you can work through that. But that's where we're able to look at it and see our Agile programs. Is this going to actually work in this organization? What's it going to take to get there? So what to do? These are just some questions that we put out there. I try to get people to consider these as they move through the program. Just, like what is the role you expect of your executive champion? If you're thinking that they're going to be that person that says, everybody's going to follow the process. Because you've got a great process, right? It looks wonderful, it feels wonderful. But they go down that path and you think that person's going to hard drive it. Again, when dad's gone or mom's gone, they're not going to follow it, and you're just going to get this topsy-turvy kind of look. So what are you really expecting out of that executive champion? When you're defining an end state, how does the business culture impact this definition? Are you even thinking about business culture right now as you're going through your projects with your organizations? Or are you just saying, I've got a tool, I've got a process, I know that thing really well, and I know how to train it and talk about it and discuss it, therefore just use this. It'll work anywhere. Don't worry about it, it'll work anywhere. Because I want to look confident. Is that really where you're going and what you're saying? Or are you thinking about where the right places are to do this stuff or how to do it? The data suggests that 30% of your end users won't want or will not allow you to go down or will slow down your project. What are your thoughts on how you're dealing with those people? Do you have a plan today before this meeting to address that 30% who's not going to want to go? The middle 30% is easy. Get the first, if you're going to figure out who the first 30% are, they're going to come no matter what. And then you tell them, go talk to that middle 30%. And that middle 30% say, oh, the jump's not as big because to everyone change looks like this. It's a huge leap. And the ones that change, the early adopters will say, it's really only like this. And if you think of this, this, and that, it gets smaller and smaller. Now all of a sudden those middle people are willing to jump over with you. Now you got 60%, which is the majority. Now we can look at that last 30% or so and say, what are we going to do here? How are we going to get there? What's going to happen? And a lot of times they'll come along because, again, if mom and dad are now rewarding this group over here that's doing good stuff, which is what I want my executive to do, be very vocal and loud about the successes of this group and point them out to the rest of the world to get envy going, yes. Envy works. It's a sin, but it works very well. It works very well in this kind of process. And I want the rest of the people saying, I want some of that action. I want that. And that's where I want them to get to. Okay, so those are things to think about. The other thing for PM success, because we have studied a lot of PMs across the years, we have studied a lot of different groups, if you will, over time. And there's 4 big things that really come for PMs to be really successful. First one's clarity, okay? You know a lot of stuff, you have a lot of tools, you have a lot of things out there, but what you're trying to do is the more you can make that simple and small, support. What are we going to do? What do you do for yourself? So how do we negotiate that? And then how are we communicating? What does that look like? The ability to be very, very clear up front is going to highlight and impact your effectiveness. Second piece is be simple. Okay? Business focused, time appropriate, sell appropriate. Look, I'm an industrial psychologist. My world talks a different world than anybody else, and so we always try to force people, well, here's the psychological word for that, and you should follow me. I gave that up 35 years ago. In my first year of graduate school or whatever, I was like, I'm not going to talk like that because psychologists don't run the world. Well, project managers don't either. And most of your clients haven't gone through project management stuff. So quit talking project management speak. Talk to your clients in words that really make sense to them. Be business focused, sell appropriately. Tell them what the benefits are and what's going to happen. Plan. Okay, so this is the part you like, right? Get your process, right? Plan the management, plan successes. And this is the only point that I start doing is now you can start planning culture. So up front, what you were doing is you were rewarding successes of following my process. Good, you followed the process. Isn't that nice? Being kind of physical. But now what we can start doing is rewarding people for cultural change. That's what I'm trying to put in your head today and make it simple, make it easy. Just start. Did you see when Fred did that stuff? If Fred can make this jump, anyone can. Start going down that path and seeing how you get people to say, the jump, it's all about making the jumps look smaller and smaller. These 4 things are that, which is if you as a PM will start thinking about the organization which was that thing with the big cheese talking to his 3 or 4 managers, talking to their people, and what's going on in that organization. And he put the people part into it, which means where's that black line going? How do I know who's successful or not, or who's going to follow along, if you will? And then I put my plan in place, which is we all like that part. We're good at it. You can find better success. These are just things to remember, so these are things kind of not to do. If you lean on your credential, like I have a PMP or this and that or the other, the day I got my PhD was the day I quit telling people I had one, because I was kind of like, okay, I let them see it on my card after I talked to them for 30. Oh my gosh, sure, oh, interesting. So, if you're going to say, look, I'm a PMP, I know something you don't know, you got to follow me. Yeah, you're going to get kicked out, right? If you must lean on your champion, because he said so, because she said that this is what we're going to do, you're going to get kicked out. Plans and processes, it's a really good process, I promise you. And just talking louder and slower on your process and saying the same things over and over aren't going to get you there either. Expectations and service levels are two-way streets. I'm going to do this for you guys, you need to do this for me. Can we agree to that simple service level agreement up front? Always measure to define your pilot, which is what I just talked about, and then short and quick wins with celebration afterwards. And so for us, when we're looking at pilots, and we're thinking, if we're doing it whole organization wide, we're implementing a new software, whole organization worldwide, we look at the company and we tell them, start with this group and this group. These are your pilot participants. They're your best chance to get this thing over the line. Well, customer service kind of has time. We'll use them. Oh, I'm sorry. Administrative is easy, right? They're just administrators. They don't really do anything. So let's start with them. We'll implement with them first. No, not in this company. We're not. Salespeople would be great at it. No, your salespeople don't like change. We're not. We're going to start with this group or this group. It's your project, not theirs. You're brought in to tell them how to succeed. It's okay up front. This is where negotiation works, not contract negotiation, workflow negotiation. Look, dude, we're going to have to get to all 1,000 of these people at some point anyway. Can I pick the first 300? Can I pick the first 50? Just let me do that. And then I want to pick the next 250 after that. But let me pick that, and that's your pain, but it's my success, and we'll own that together. That's fair enough. When's the CEO? How many executives are going to say no? Really? 1,000 people here, I want 100. Let me pick them. Or let me pick the department. You won't regret it. And then within a department, we'll pick the first group. Yeah, we got sales or whatever. We got operations. This group. This is my pilot. And you may not have assessments. You may not have stuff like that. That's fine. You need to figure out a way to start figuring this stuff out. Okay? And I wish there was a magic bullet where you now have it go, but it doesn't work that way. But you got to. More you start putting a little bit of time into this, say 2 hours before you start a project, 5 hours up front to interview 10 or 12 or 20 people or have a couple of focus groups, this, that, or the other to do some of the stuff that you might typically do anyway, to try and figure some of this out, to at least try to halfway, partially stack your deck the right way, better off you're going to be, I promise you. And then as we move on, it's a heck of a lot better on mine than it does up there, but as we move on, then we're measuring all the time. We just worked with, and so you should be able to see a whole lot of stuff there, but basically we were working with a group, five misaligned IT groups within an organization without a CIO. They're going to try and figure out, can we lead these things without a CIO? Can we come together as a team and work together? And they had a lot of difficulties because they were silos, worst silos I've ever seen, not worse, but they're pretty darn bad. And they were doing a lot of destructive, consequential, dangerous stuff, like I talked about at the beginning. And we took a look at them and started doing that. And as we looked at them, we realized these three are kind of a niche, and there was like 3 older ones and 2 newer ones, and they just beat up on the other ones all the time, and like a survivor sort of thing going on. And then we actually had them measure each other. Okay, because our purpose that day was to measure how well people, or how well they're doing the stuff they claimed that they would do, right? And so for your waterfall to agile transformation, or your agile improvement processes, you've got 4 or 5 things that you think this group needs to do better in order to get there, right? Measure it. Not only measure it, we measured the individuals. We said, hey, how's he doing on it? How's he doing? What's she doing? What's that one doing? Easy, 5-point, 3-point scale or something like that, half points in the middle, and we answered it, and they eviscerated each other. They were brutally, truthfully honest, and it made things work so much better because we could show this to them. And every 2 weeks, just like your sprints, every 2 weeks, we're going, hey, rate each other, figure out what's going on. Because we needed to see whether they were doing things the right way and getting to the right spot. So we're always taught to only measure at this level and only measure this stuff. Bull crap. Okay? Measure what you need to measure to get your project successful. Get out of that singular focus and move on. We all have values. Awareness is key to managing projects. Validate your hunches by linking values to outcomes. Manage low spots by recognizing these triggers, structuring work and inviting feedback, and use your data to guide your 30-30-30. Okay? Absolutely, whatever data you can get. I mean, we've got a pretty good science down where we can get about a 95% accuracy rate. You're not going to do that if you're just winging it in your head, but you're going to hopefully get, it's a lot like lifting weights. Okay? It's not going to be easy the first time. There's always going to be resistance, but you can actually get better at it. But every time you get better, there's more weight that you can put on. There's more weight that you can put on. Okay? And so we're lifting a lot of heavy weight and being able to be very, very precise and accurate. But if you at least put some energy and some effort into this stuff up front, start thinking about it and put a little of your time into it, thinking about the people and not just the process and how pretty it is and how great it is and how it all fits together, you're going to have a little bit more success ahead. That's 30 seconds long, I'm sorry. but 14 and a half minutes early. So I'll stop right there. I've talked at you guys a lot. I've said a lot of things. Are there any questions or anything that I can help you understand a little bit better as we move forward? As a local organization, my 2 partners are in like the Agile hood and all these kinds of things. And as a local organization, we love talking to organizations. We love getting the word out because we want to support what you guys are trying to do. Okay? This isn't sales. It's not what I'm trying to say right now. But if you want us to come talk to a group of people in your organization, or you want us to come do something similar to this as we go forward, we got our contact information. You know how to get a hold of us. You can come up here later. I'll give you a card if you want. But if you need some help or assistance with that kind of stuff, okay, just let us know. A chat and shoot, buy me a lunch. I'll be glad to talk. You need us with a group of executives that you're trying to change their minds on, fine. Come in and give a presentation. We look really good as an objective third party, okay? We can come off pretty well. We're a local resource, and if we can help you in any way, let us know, okay? All right. Really appreciate you. I mean, only one guy almost fell asleep for 5 or 7 minutes. Most of you kind of stayed awake, and that's good because it's the last session of the day. But if any of you guys, if you have anything else, let me know. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate your time.